Atomic Habit, welcome to the narrated novel where books are not just summarized, they're brought to life through storytelling. Here, every page becomes a journey, and every idea unfolds like a story worth remembering. Today, we begin with one of the most life-changing books of our time, Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is not just a book about habits. It's a book about transformation. About how the tiniest decisions, repeated day after day, can rebuild a shattered life and shape an extraordinary future, and what makes this story truly powerful is that it begins with tragedy. A young man struck in the face by a baseball bat. His skull fractured. His memory fading. His future slipping away. That boy was James Clear, but out of this darkness, something remarkable was born: a discovery that small, atomic changes could compound into greatness. A discovery that would change his life. And later, change the lives of millions around the world. Introduction: my story. It was the last day of James Clear's sophomore year in high school. The sun was shining, and the baseball field was buzzing with energy. James was standing near his teammates when a classmate swung his bat. Suddenly, the bat slipped out of his hands and came hurtling through the air like a missile. Before James could react, crack. The bat smashed into his face, his nose was crushed into a U shape. His skull fractured in multiple places. Both eye sockets shattered. Blood poured down his clothes. Disoriented, he staggered as classmates rushed to help. His teacher wrapped an arm around him and walked him slowly to the nurse's office, unaware that every second mattered. By the time James reached the nurse, he couldn't answer basic questions. "What year is it?" she asked. James said, 1998. "But it was 2002, who is the president?" James answered, "Bill Clinton." "But it was George W. Bush." Even when asked his own mother's name, he froze for 10 seconds before whispering, "Patty." Moments later, he collapsed. James was rushed to the hospital. His brain was swelling dangerously, and soon he stopped breathing. A helicopter flew him to a larger hospital in Cincinnati. His mother held his hand as doctors pumped oxygen into him by hand. By the time he arrived, he had suffered repeated seizures. Doctors put him in a medically induced coma. Machines were the only thing keeping him alive. For his parents, this wasn't the first time in that hospital. 10 years earlier, they had walked through the same doors when James's little sister had been diagnosed with leukemia. Now, another child was fighting for his life. That night, as James lay unconscious, his parents prayed he would survive. My recovery. By the next morning, James's condition had stabilized enough for doctors to wake him from the coma. He slowly regained consciousness. His vision was doubled, his nose shattered, his face disfigured. When he tried to blow his nose, air escaped through fractures in his skull, forcing his eyeball outward. It bulged out, barely held in place by the eyelid and optic nerve. The next months were grueling. He couldn't drive for 8 months. He struggled just to walk in a straight line. Depression and doubt crept in. Baseball, the sport he loved, was stripped away from him. When he finally tried out again, he was humiliated, the only junior cut from the varsity team. Sitting in his car afterward, he cried, flipping through radio stations, desperately searching for a song to ease the pain, but he didn't give up. By senior year, he made varsity. Not a star, not a hero, but he was back on the field. That small victory was the first sign of something bigger to come. How I learned about habits. College was James's fresh start. At Denison University, he joined the baseball team, at the very bottom of the roster. This time, he decided to rebuild his life one habit at a time. While classmates stayed up late playing video games, he went to bed early, in messy dorm rooms. He kept his space neat, he studied consistently, eventually earning straight A's. Small habits began to shape him. He lifted weights regularly for the first time. Over time, his 6 feet 4 inches frame grew from 170 pounds to a strong 200. He became a starting pitcher, then team captain, then voted into the all-conference team. 6 years after his accident, James was named the top male athlete at Denison University and earned academic All-American honors. The boy who once lay in a coma was now living his full potential, all because of small, consistent habits. How and why I wrote this book. In 2012, James started writing about habits online. Twice a week, he published articles on his website, jamesclear.com. At first, only a handful of readers subscribed. But as weeks passed, thousands began to follow. By 2014, his newsletter had grown to over 100,000 subscribers. By 2016, millions were reading his articles. Coaches from the NFL, NBA, and MLB were sharing his work with their teams. Companies began inviting him to speak about behavior change and performance. He realized the lessons he had lived, the slow rebuilding of his life after tragedy, were the same principles that could transform anyone's life. And so, he signed a book deal. Atomic Habits was born. How this book will benefit you. James makes one promise: this book isn't theory, it's an operating manual for life. It combines science, psychology, biology, and real-world experience into a simple, practical framework. The 4 laws of behavior change: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. These principles are universal. They can help you in health, business, relationships, or personal growth. James's story proves it. Tiny, atomic habits can rebuild a shattered life. And now, they can help you build the life you've always wanted. Takeaway for listeners: success is not one big leap. It is the sum of small, daily choices. If habits could help a boy in a coma become an academic All-American, they can help you achieve anything. Chapter 1: The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. Let me take you back to the year 2003. For nearly 100 years, British cycling was a story of disappointment. Imagine, since 1908, they had won just one Olympic gold medal in cycling. Not a single British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France, the most prestigious race in the sport's history. They were so bad that top European bike manufacturers refused to sell bikes to them, afraid that being associated with the British team would hurt their brand. Then, something changed. A man named Dave Brailsford was hired as the new performance director. He didn't promise miracles. He didn't even talk about big wins. Instead, he had a strange philosophy: the aggregation of marginal gains. Brailsford believed that if you could improve everything related to cycling by just 1%, the seat design, the tire grip, the rider's sleep quality, then all those tiny improvements would add up to something extraordinary. So the team began experimenting. They redesigned bike seats to make riders more comfortable. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for better grip. They used biofeedback sensors to study how riders responded to training. They tested fabrics in a wind tunnel, and switched to racing suits that were lighter and more aerodynamic. But Brailsford didn't stop there. His obsession with small gains extended to the tiniest details. He had riders learn the most effective way to wash their hands, to reduce the chances of catching a cold. He tested which type of pillow and mattress led to the best night's sleep. He even had the inside of the team truck painted white, so they could easily spot dust that might interfere with the finely tuned bikes. At first, these changes seemed laughably small. But as they stacked up, the results were astonishing. Just 5 years later, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the British cycling team shocked the world, winning 60% of the gold medals available. For years after that, in London, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records, and in 2012, Bradley Wiggins became the first British cyclist to win the Tour de France. The next year, his teammate Chris Froome won it too. In fact, between 2007 and 2017, British cyclists went on to win 178 World Championships, 66 Olympic or Paralympic gold medals, and 5 Tour de France victories. A team that was once seen as hopeless became the most dominant force in cycling history, all because of tiny, atomic improvements. James Clear uses this story to show us a profound truth. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement, just as money multiplies through compound interest. Your habits multiply through repetition. Improving by just 1% a day may not feel like much, but over the course of a year, you'll become 37 times better. Conversely, getting 1% worse every day can drag you down close to zero. He compares it to an ice cube sitting on a table. At 25 degrees, nothing happens. At 26 degrees, nothing. At 30 degrees, still nothing. But at 32 degrees, suddenly, the ice begins to melt. All those small temperature shifts built up silently until a breakthrough arrived. That's how habits work. For weeks or months, you may feel no difference. But eventually, if you persist, the compound effect kicks in and results explode. The key lesson: don't obsess over goals. Focus on the system, the small habits that drive results. Goals can set direction, but it's your habits that determine progress. Because in the end, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Takeaway for you: every choice you make is a vote for the type of person you want to become. The question is, will today's 1% improvement stack in your favor? Or against you? Chapter 2, How Your Habits Shape Your Identity, and vice versa. Why is it that bad habits cling to us so tightly, while good habits slip away like water through our fingers? Think about it. You start a workout plan. You're excited, motivated, ready to change. Day 1, you crush it. Day 2, you show up again. Day 3, maybe. But soon, excuses creep in. Work gets busy. You're tired. The habit fades, but eating junk food, scrolling endlessly, skipping workouts, those bad habits, they stick. Sometimes it feels like they're part of who you are, and here's the truth James Clear reveals: they are. See, every habit you perform isn't just something you do. It's a vote for who you believe yourself to be. To understand this, James introduces us to 3 layers of change. Imagine an onion, with its layers stacked one inside the other. The outer layer is outcomes. This is where most of us focus. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to write a novel. I want to get promoted. These are goals, results. They're measurable, but they're surface level. The middle layer is processes. This is about the systems and routines we follow to reach outcomes. For example, I'm going to meal prep every Sunday. I'm going to write 500 words a day. I'm going to wake up an hour earlier. This is deeper than outcomes because it addresses how you get there, but the innermost layer, the heart of the onion, is identity. This is about your beliefs, the story you tell yourself about who you are. I'm a healthy person. I'm a disciplined learner. I'm the type of person who never misses workouts. This is where real change happens. Here's why: most people try to change from the outside in. They start with outcomes. I want to quit smoking. But deep down, they still see themselves as a smoker trying to resist temptation. But when you flip it, when you start with identity, the game changes. Instead of saying I want to quit smoking, you say, I'm not a smoker. Now, every decision aligns with who you are. The habit reinforces identity, and identity reinforces the habit. Think about it this way: every action you take is like casting a vote. One workout. A vote for I am an athlete. One page written. A vote for I am a writer. One healthy meal. A vote for I am a healthy person. No single vote will win the election. But stack enough of them together, and soon your identity is undeniable. You become the person your habits prove you to be. This is why change feels so hard when it's based only on outcomes. Because you're trying to fight against who you think you are. It's like swimming upstream, but when your identity and habits align, it's like flowing with the current. You don't have to force yourself to exercise when you truly believe I am an athlete. You don't have to force yourself to write when you believe I am a writer. It becomes natural, automatic, effortless. So the real question is not, what do I want to achieve? The real question is, who do I want to become? James leaves us with a powerful thought: your habits are not just actions. They are the building blocks of your identity. Every repetition, every small choice, is shaping the person you are becoming, for better, or for worse. Takeaway for you: don't just set goals. Build identities. Don't ask, how do I lose weight? Ask, what would a healthy person do? Don't say, I want to run a marathon. Say, I am a runner. When you focus on identity first, outcomes take care of themselves. Chapter 3, How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps. In the early 1930s, inside a quiet psychology lab, a man named B.F. Skinner was running an unusual experiment. He had built a box. It wasn't large, just a small chamber with metal walls, a lever in the middle, and a food dispenser on one side. He placed a hungry rat inside and shut the door. At first, the rat scurried around aimlessly, sniffing the corners, scratching at the walls, searching for an escape. Nothing happened. But then, by accident, the rat brushed against the lever. Click. A pellet of food dropped into the tray. The rat froze. Sniffed. Ate. Relief. Then it wandered again. Minutes later, another bump. Another pellet. This time, the rat didn't wait. It pressed the lever again. Click. Pellet. Again. And again, very quickly, the rat learned, lever equals food. Press equals reward. Skinner had uncovered something timeless, the invisible loop behind all habits. James Clear calls it the habit loop. It has 4 simple stages: cue, the trigger that tells your brain to begin; craving, the desire for a change in state; response, the action or habit itself; reward, the satisfaction that teaches your brain to repeat it. It sounds simple. But this loop explains everything from why we reach for junk food, to why we check our phones 100 times a day, to why we brush our teeth in the morning without even thinking. Let's bring it to life. Picture yourself sitting in a quiet room. Suddenly, your phone buzzes. Cue, your mind sparks. Who messaged me? Maybe it's important. Maybe it's funny. That's the craving. You reach for your phone. Swipe, tap, unlock. Response, you see a text from your best friend, a joke that makes you laugh. Reward, and now, without realizing it, your brain has learned something. Phone buzz equals pleasure. Check it next time. Repeat this 100, 1,000 times, and soon you're checking your phone without even noticing. The habit loop runs silently in the background. It works with food too. You walk into the kitchen. On the counter sits a plate of warm, fresh cookies. Cue, the smell, the sight, the memory of sweetness floods your senses. Craving, you reach out, pick one up, take a bite. Response, sugar melts on your tongue, your brain releases dopamine. Reward, and now, every time you walk into that kitchen and see cookies, your brain whispers, go ahead. Take one. You'll feel good, but here's the important part: the same loop that builds bad habits can build good ones. Imagine this: before going to bed, you place your running shoes by the door. When you wake up in the morning, you see them immediately. Cue. You imagine the rush of energy, the pride of finishing a jog. Craving, you put on the shoes and head out the door. Response, by the end of the run, you feel alive, proud, healthier. Reward, your brain learns, running feels good. Do it again tomorrow. This loop, cue, craving, response, reward, is the hidden architecture of behavior. Once you see it, you realize that nothing you do is random. Every habit, every routine, runs through these steps, and that means if you want to change your habits, you don't need more motivation or discipline. You need to redesign the loop. James Clear gives us the blueprint, the 4 laws of behavior change. To build good habits, make it obvious. Make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying, and to break bad ones, invert them, make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. These laws aren't theories. They're levers. Tools. The next chapters of this book will show you exactly how to pull them, one by one. Takeaway for you: your habits aren't accidents. They're loops. Once you master the loop, you don't just react to life, you design it. Chapter 4, The Man Who Didn't Look Right. It was a quiet night in a small American town. A woman, an ordinary woman, out with friends, found herself in a casino. The room glowed with neon lights, machines chiming, dice rolling, dealers calling bets. Everything looked normal, but then She noticed him, a man sitting at a slot machine. Nothing unusual on the surface, he was feeding coins, pulling the lever, watching the reel spin. But something deep inside her whispered, something's wrong, she couldn't explain it. The man wasn't doing anything threatening. He wasn't shouting, he wasn't drunk, he wasn't even out of control. Yet, every instinct in her body said the same thing, he doesn't look right. She went straight to security and told them. The guards walked over, checked on the man, and within moments realized the truth, he was having a heart attack. Emergency services rushed in. His life was saved. Now, here's the question, how did she know? Even she couldn't explain it. All she said was, he just didn't look right. James Clear explains that this is the power of habits, not just personal ones, but subconscious patterns of observation. Over years of living in the world, this woman's brain had stored millions of tiny cues, the way a healthy person looks, the way a relaxed person sits, the rhythm of someone breathing normally. When something was off, her subconscious noticed before her conscious mind could explain it. Her brain had seen the pattern break. And habits are nothing if not patterns. This is why cues matter so much in our own habits. Every habit begins with a cue. It's the spark that lights the fire, the signal that triggers the behavior. Without a cue, there is no craving. Without a craving, there is no response. Think about it, you don't eat just because food exists. You eat because you see it. You don't scroll your phone just because it's in your pocket. You scroll because you hear it buzz, you don't turn on the TV just because it's there. You turn it on because you walk into the living room and see the remote sitting on the table. Cues are everywhere, shaping you, guiding you, nudging you toward habits without you even realizing it. The woman in the casino could sense something was wrong because she had unconsciously cataloged thousands of cues over her lifetime. In the same way, your brain is cataloging cues every day, and those cues trigger your habits. James Clear tells us, if you want to master your habits, the first step is mastering your cues. This is the foundation of the first law of behavior change. Make it obvious. Instead of waiting for motivation, redesign your environment. Want to drink more water? Put a water bottle where you'll see it. Want to practice guitar? Leave it in the middle of the living room instead of tucked away in a closet. Want to read more? Place a book on your pillow so you see it before bed. Your habits aren't just a result of discipline. They're shaped by what's visible, what's obvious, in your environment. Just as that woman could sense a life or death emergency from a single glance, you too are constantly reacting to the cues around you. Most of the time, you don't even notice. But if you want change, you must notice. Takeaway for you, you don't need to rely on willpower. You need to design your world. Make the cues of your good habits visible, and hide the cues of your bad ones. Because every habit begins with a cue, and once you control the cues, you control the habit. Chapter 5, The Best Way to Start a New Habit. In 2001, a group of researchers in Great Britain ran a study on hundreds of people who wanted to build a healthier habit, exercise. The participants were divided into 3 groups. The first group was the control group. They were simply asked to track how often they exercised. No motivation, no strategies, just try to do it. The second group was the motivation group. These people were not only asked to track their workouts, but also given information about why exercise was important, how it reduced heart disease, boosted health, and improved mood. They were shown inspiring statistics, given motivational speeches, and left to do their best. The third group, however, was given something very different. They were asked to make a simple plan, written in one clear sentence. During the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise on day, at time, in place. No speeches. No motivation. Just a sentence that created a when and where for the habit. The results, in the control group, only about 35% of people exercised at least once per week. In the motivation group, even with all the inspiring speeches, it was the same, about 35%, but in the group that wrote down a specific plan, an astonishing 91% of them exercised at least once a week. The lesson was clear: motivation is overrated. Clarity wins. James Clear calls this strategy an implementation intention. It works because most of us don't actually lack motivation, we lack clarity. We say, "I'll start working out." But when? Where? How? Without specifics, our brain defaults to procrastination, but when you say, "I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. I will walk for 10 minutes at 5 p.m. in the park. I will write 1 page at 8 a.m. at my desk," the habit suddenly becomes real. You've given your brain a cue to follow. James also explains a clever twist, the habit stacking formula. Instead of tying your new habit to a random time or place, you attach it to something you already do every day. It works like this: after I brush my teeth, I will floss 1 tooth. After I pour my morning coffee, I will write down 1 thing I'm grateful for. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. This formula, after, current habit, I will, new habit, piggybacks new behaviors onto old routines. And because your current habits are already automatic, the new ones have a much higher chance of sticking. Think about it, you don't need motivation to brush your teeth. You just do it. Imagine if every time you brushed, you stacked a small positive habit right after. Over time, that stack grows: brushing, flossing, gratitude, stretching, journaling. Before long, your mornings are transformed. It's like building a train of habits, each one pulling the next forward. Takeaway for you: if you want a new habit to stick, don't rely on willpower. Don't just hope you remember. Write it down. Make it clear: I will, action, at, time, in, place. And even more powerful, stack it onto something you already do every day. Motivation may get you started, but clarity and structure are what keep you going. Chapter 6, Motivation is overrated, environment often matters more. The year was 1971. America was deep in the Vietnam War. But beyond the battles, something else was happening, something terrifying. Reports began reaching the US government. Nearly 15% of American soldiers in Vietnam were addicted to heroin. Think about that. Not just using occasionally, addicted. Back home, people panicked. Officials feared a wave of drug addicts would return from the war, flooding American streets with crime and chaos. President Nixon declared drug abuse public enemy number 1 and sent researchers to Vietnam to investigate, but what they found shocked everyone. When soldiers returned home, nearly 90% of them simply stopped using heroin. No rehab clinics. Number 12-step programs. No lifelong battles. They went from heavy addiction to clean, almost overnight. How? The answer wasn't motivation or willpower. It was environment. In Vietnam, heroin was everywhere, cheap, accessible, surrounded by queues. Soldiers were bored, stressed, traumatized. The environment fueled the habit, but back in the United States, everything changed. No dealers on every corner. No bunkmates using. No cues of war. The cravings disappeared. The habit withered. This story reveals a powerful truth: your environment shapes your behavior far more than motivation ever could. James Clear explains that we often blame ourselves for a lack of willpower. I just can't resist junk food. I don't have the discipline to focus. I'm not motivated enough. But the real problem isn't motivation. It's that our environment is full of cues pulling us toward bad habits. Think about it: if a bowl of candy sits on your desk, you'll eat it. If your phone is next to you while you're studying, you'll pick it up. If Netflix is the first thing you see when you open your laptop, you'll click it. It's not that you're weak. It's that your environment is nudging you, silently, powerfully, every second. So here's the secret: design your environment for success. Want to eat healthier? Put fruit on the counter, and hide the junk food in the pantry. Want to read more? Place a book on your pillow each morning so you can't miss it at night. Want to watch less TV? Take the batteries out of the remote and put them in a drawer in another room. When the cues change, the habits change. James gives a brilliant example from his own life. He wanted to eat less popcorn. So instead of keeping it in the pantry, he stopped buying it altogether. The craving couldn't survive if the cue wasn't there. Likewise, when he wanted to practice guitar more, he didn't rely on motivation. He simply placed the guitar in the middle of his living room. Now, every time he walked by, the cue whispered, "Pick me up. Play." And so he did. The lesson is clear: you don't have to be stronger. You just have to be smarter with your environment. Motivation rises and falls. Willpower fades. But your environment is always shaping you. If you want lasting change, stop fighting the old cues. Remove them. And start surrounding yourself with new ones that naturally pull you toward the person you want to become. Takeaway for you: don't rely on motivation. Design your environment. Make the cues of your good habits obvious, and the cues of your bad habits invisible. Because in the end, your surroundings are stronger than your willpower. Chapter 7, The Secret to Self-Control. When most of us think of self-control, we imagine iron willpower. The monk who meditates for hours without distraction. The athlete who resists junk food year-round. The student who never touches their phone while studying. But here's the surprising truth James Clear reveals: the people who seem to have the most self-control actually use it the least. In the early 2000s, researchers at Yale and Stanford ran a study on individuals who appeared to have incredible discipline. These were people who exercised consistently, studied hard, and avoided temptations. The scientists expected to find that these people had stronger willpower than the rest of us. But the results were shocking. They didn't resist temptation more often, they avoided temptation more often. In other words, they weren't superheroes of discipline, they were architects of environment. They didn't keep junk food in the house. They didn't scroll endlessly because they didn't keep distracting apps on their phones. They didn't waste hours on TV because they never bought one in the first place. Their secret was simple: if you don't see the cue, you don't fight the craving. Think about it. Imagine trying to stay on a diet while working at a bakery. Every day, the smell of fresh bread. The sight of pastries, the constant cues. No matter how much willpower you have, eventually you'll cave. Now imagine the opposite. Your pantry is stocked only with fruits, vegetables, and healthy snacks. Suddenly, you don't need willpower to avoid chips or candy. They simply aren't there. This is the essence of self-control, removing the need for it. James Clear connects this to the first law of behavior change: make it obvious. But when it comes to breaking bad habits, the rule flips: make it invisible. If you don't want to check your phone so much, don't leave it on the desk beside you. Put it in another room. If you want to stop watching so much TV, unplug it after every use or put the remote in a drawer across the house. If you want to cut down on drinking, don't keep alcohol in your home. The fewer cues you see, the fewer habits you'll trigger. James shares how he applied this himself. When he wanted to spend less time scrolling social media, he deleted the apps from his phone. Not forever, just enough to break the automatic loop. Now, if he wanted to check, he had to go to a browser, log in, type his password, all small barriers, but enough to break the habit. Over time, the craving faded, because the cues were gone. So here's the truth about self-control: it's not about white-knuckling your way through temptation. It's about not being tempted in the first place. As the old saying goes, discipline is destiny. But in reality, environment is destiny. Takeaway for you: stop blaming yourself for weak willpower. You don't need to be stronger. You need to be smarter. Remove the cues of your bad habits. Make them invisible. Because the ultimate secret of self-control is to not need it at all. Chapter 8, How to Make a Habit Irresistible. Picture this: it's 1954, and two Canadian researchers, James Olds and Peter Milner, are conducting an experiment with rats. They insert tiny electrodes into a rat's brain and accidentally hit a region scientists had never noticed before. When they delivered a mild electric current to this spot, the rat went wild. It pressed the lever again and again, hundreds, even thousands of times per hour, just to feel the stimulation. What Olds and Milner had discovered was the pleasure center of the brain. More specifically, they had stumbled onto the dopamine system, the very circuitry that fuels our cravings. And here's the key insight: dopamine doesn't just spike when we get a reward. It spikes when we anticipate it. That's why the mere smell of cookies makes your mouth water. Why a buzz from your phone makes you itch to check it. Why the thought of a hot shower makes you relax before the water even touches your skin. It's not the reward itself, it's the anticipation that makes habits irresistible. James Clear calls this the temptation bundling effect, linking something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, you can only watch Netflix while riding the exercise bike. You only listen to your favorite podcast while walking. You only enjoy dessert after you've cooked a healthy dinner. Suddenly, the habit you need feels more attractive because it's tied to something you love, but it doesn't stop there. James also shows how society itself shapes cravings. From childhood, we've been wired to imitate the people around us. We want to fit in with our tribe. That's why if everyone in your family eats unhealthy food, you probably will too. If your friends go to the gym, you'll be more likely to join them. Habits are contagious. We copy the behaviors of the close, family, friends, the many, the culture around us, and the powerful, those we admire. So if you want a habit to stick, don't just make it attractive on your own. Join a tribe where your desired behavior is the norm. Want to exercise more? Join a fitness class or running club. Want to read more? Spend time with book lovers. Want to start a business? Surround yourself with entrepreneurs, because when belonging is on the line, habits become irresistible. James sums it up this way: you don't just crave the habit, you crave the feeling, the status, the belonging that comes with it. The rat in the lab craved the dopamine hit. You crave the feeling of being connected, admired, included. And if your habits help deliver that feeling, they'll stick. Takeaway for you: don't fight cravings. Redesign them. Link the habits you need with the things you want. Surround yourself with people who embody the identity you desire. Because when a habit is attractive, motivation is no longer a struggle, you'll be pulled toward it naturally. Chapter 9: The Role of Family and Friends in Shaping Your Habits. Imagine this: you walk into a room filled with strangers. No one says a word. Suddenly, smoke begins seeping from the corner of the room. It grows thicker, filling the air. What would you do? Common sense says you'd run for the door. But in a famous psychology experiment, most people didn't move. They sat quietly, coughing, eyes watering, pretending nothing was wrong. Why? Because everyone else was sitting still too. This is the power of the tribe. When in doubt, we copy the crowd. James Clear explains that our habits aren't formed in isolation. They are shaped by the people closest to us, the larger culture we live in, and the people we look up to, the close family and friends. If everyone in your family eats large portions, chances are you will too. If your partner loves to run, you'll likely join them. Our closest circle silently molds our behavior every day. The many: society, culture, community. What's normal in your culture feels right to you. In Japan, bowing is polite. In America, handshakes are normal. In one culture, eating insects is common. In another, it's unthinkable. These norms aren't laws of nature, they're habits shaped by the many. The powerful: those we admire. From childhood, we imitate those with status. A younger sibling copies an older one. Employees copy the boss. Fans copy celebrities. If someone you admire smokes, drinks, or exercises, you're more likely to adopt that behavior too. This is why choosing your tribe carefully is one of the most powerful ways to change your habits. Want to get fit? Join a group where exercise is normal. Want to write more? Spend time with people who talk about books and ideas. Want to quit drinking? Surround yourself with friends who don't drink, because here's the truth: belonging often beats desire. We would rather be wrong with the crowd than right and alone. We'd rather fit in than stand out. Which means, if your tribe makes good habits the price of admission, you'll do them willingly. James gives an example: a man who moved to a new city and wanted to make friends. He joined a CrossFit gym, not because he loved working out, but because he craved community. Very quickly, exercise became a natural part of his life. Why? Because in that group, working out was what made you belong. He didn't chase the habit. He chased the tribe. The tribe gave him the habit. So here's the lesson: habits are not just about identity, they're about belonging. if your tribe values reading, you'll read more. If your tribe values partying, you'll party more. If your tribe values discipline, you'll grow disciplined. The fastest way to change your habits is to join a group where the behavior you desire is the normal behavior of the group. Takeaway for you: you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your tribe. Choose carefully. Because in the end, your habits aren't just what you do, they're what your people do. Chapter 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. Why do we keep falling into the same traps? Why do we eat junk food even when we're full? Check our phones when there's no message. Scroll endlessly when we should be working. It's because we've misunderstood the real driver of habits. We think we want the thing. But what we actually want is the feeling it gives us. Think about it. You don't crave a cigarette, you crave relief from stress. You don't crave scrolling Instagram, you crave connection, or maybe distraction. You don't crave chips or soda, you crave the comfort, the quick pleasure, the little jolt of dopamine. The object itself isn't the habit. The feeling is. James Clear explains that this is why cravings are so powerful. They trick us into thinking we need the object, when really, it's just a vehicle. When you crave alcohol, what you want is relaxation. When you crave TV, what you want is entertainment and escape. When you crave checking email, what you want is to feel important, needed, in control. And once your brain links that object with that feeling, the habit locks in. But here's the good news: if habits are driven by feelings, then you can reprogram them by finding new ways to get the same feeling. James calls this reframing your cravings. Instead of saying, "I have to work out," say, "I get to move my body and feel strong." Instead of saying, "I need to wake up early," say, "I get a head start on the day." Instead of saying, "I have to cook at home," say, "I get to save money and eat clean." The action doesn't change, but the meaning does. And when the meaning changes, the craving changes. This is why the second law of behavior change is make it attractive. If a habit feels like a punishment, you'll resist it. But if it feels like a reward, you'll chase it. It's the same reason advertisers never sell you the product. They sell you the feeling. A car commercial isn't about 4 wheels and an engine, it's about freedom, power, status. A perfume ad isn't about scent, it's about romance, attraction, desire. Your brain doesn't care about the object. It cares about how the object makes you feel. So the next time you struggle with a bad habit, don't just ask, "How do I stop this?" Ask instead, "What craving is this habit really satisfying? And is there a healthier way to meet that craving?" Maybe instead of scrolling your phone late at night to relax, you could read a calming book. Instead of smoking to ease stress, you could take a short walk. Instead of eating junk food for comfort, you could call a friend. The key is not to erase cravings, it's to redirect them. Takeaway for you: behind every habit is a craving. You don't crave the cigarette, the screen, or the sugar. You crave the feeling. Find a healthier way to get the same feeling, and you'll fix the habit at its root. Chapter 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. Let me take you back to Japan in the 1950s and 60s, a country rebuilding itself after the devastation of World War II. Factories were rising again, but efficiency was a constant struggle. At Toyota, a man named Taichi Ono was about to revolutionize the world of manufacturing. His approach wasn't flashy. He didn't believe in big speeches or complicated plans. Instead, he believed in teaching people to see differently. One day, Ono drew a small circle with chalk on the floor of the Toyota factory. He called over a young manager, pointed to the circle, and said, "Stand here and watch." The manager, confused but obedient, stepped inside. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The factory floor buzzed with activity. Workers lifted parts, machines clanked, forklifts rolled by. The young man grew restless. "What am I supposed to see?" he thought, but Ono didn't say a word. He simply repeated, "Watch." By the end of the day, the manager noticed something subtle: a worker taking too many steps to retrieve a part. Another bending awkwardly to pick up a tool. A small delay on the assembly line every time a component was slightly out of place. He reported his findings. Ono nodded and said, "Good. Fix one of them tomorrow. Then come back to the circle." And so it began. Day after day, the manager stood inside the chalk circle. Each time, he spotted something new, some small inefficiency, some tiny flaw in the system. And each time, he made a small improvement. Over weeks and months, these micro-fixes transformed the factory. Productivity soared. Mistakes dropped. Workers became faster, safer, more efficient. This simple exercise revealed a truth: massive success is rarely the result of one radical change. It is the product of tiny, consistent improvements, the aggregation of marginal gains. Habits work the same way. James Clear uses this story to remind us that building good habits, and breaking bad ones, follows the same principle. When we want change, we crave dramatic results. I want to lose 20 pounds this month. I'll write an entire book this year. I'll double my income by December. But this mindset sets us up for frustration. Because real change doesn't happen in giant leaps. It happens the way Toyota improved its factories, step by step, flaw by flaw, one small habit at a time. Think of it like climbing a mountain. The summit looks impossibly far. If you stare at the peak, you'll feel overwhelmed. But if you focus only on the next step, then the next, and the next, eventually, without even realizing it, you'll find yourself at the top. Identity and habits. Here's the deeper insight: success isn't about crossing a finish line. It's about becoming the kind of person who keeps moving forward. The goal isn't just to run a marathon once. The goal is to become a runner. The goal isn't just to declutter your house once. The goal is to become an organized person. The goal isn't just to meditate for 30 days. The goal is to become someone who lives mindfully. This shift in mindset changes everything. Instead of chasing outcomes, you focus on building systems. Instead of chasing perfection, you commit to progress. James puts it beautifully: habits are not a finish line to be crossed. They are a lifestyle to be lived. Slow progress still counts. There will be days when your progress feels painfully slow. You'll feel stuck in the chalk circle of your own life, watching others race ahead. But remember the lesson of Toyota: even the tiniest adjustments compound. Even 1% improvements, stacked over weeks and months, become unstoppable momentum. Walking slowly is fine. What matters is that you never walk backward. Takeaway for you: don't chase speed. Chase direction. If you are 1% better today than yesterday, you're moving forward. It doesn't matter how slow you go, what matters is that you're not turning back. Walk slowly if you must, but never backward. Chapter 12, The Law of Least Effort. Let's travel back in time, to a world before washing machines, before microwaves, before smartphones. Imagine you're living in the 1800s. If you wanted clean clothes, you didn't toss them in a machine and press a button. You walked to a river, bent over for hours, scrubbing fabric against stones until your back ached. Cooking. No food delivery apps, no instant meals. If you wanted dinner, you grew the crops, chopped the wood, built the fire, and cooked from scratch. Life was hard. Every task took enormous energy, but as technology evolved, one thing became clear: human beings will always choose the path of least resistance. That's why we invented washing machines, microwaves, elevators, cars, and smartphones. We're wired to seek efficiency, to save time and effort whenever possible. James Clear calls this the law of least effort. When faced with two similar options, people will naturally gravitate toward the one that requires the least work. How this shapes our habits. Think about your own habits. Why do you scroll social media instead of reading a book? Because your phone is right there, one tap away, while the book is across the room. Why do you eat junk food instead of cooking a meal? Because chips are in the pantry, ready in seconds, while preparing vegetables takes time and effort. Why do you watch Netflix instead of working on your goals? Because the TV remote is on the couch, while your work requires opening the laptop, resisting distractions, and actually thinking. It's not that you lack discipline. It's that your brain is lazy, and it's designed to conserve energy. Habits that are easy, convenient, and frictionless win. The power of friction. Here's the secret: if you want to build better habits, you must reduce friction for good behaviors, and increase friction for bad ones. Think of friction as the invisible force that decides whether you'll act or not. Even the tiniest bit of effort can change your choice. For example, if your guitar is in its case, zipped up, under the bed, you won't play it. But if it's on a stand in the living room, you'll pick it up. If your workout clothes are buried in a drawer, you'll skip the gym. But if you set them out the night before, you'll wear them automatically. If cookies are on the counter, you'll eat them. If they're hidden in the pantry, or better yet, not bought at all, you'll skip them. One extra step of friction makes a habit harder. One less step makes it easier. Prime your environment. James Clear uses a powerful phrase: environment is the invisible hand that shapes behavior. Want to eat healthier? Chop fruits and vegetables in advance and keep them visible. Want to read more? Place a book on your pillow so you see it before bed. Want to practice gratitude? Keep a journal and pen on your nightstand. This strategy is called priming your environment, preparing your space so the good habits are the easiest option, and the bad habits become inconvenient. Think of it like this: don't just rely on motivation. Set up your environment so that success becomes the path of least resistance. Tiny steps lead to momentum. Remember, you don't need to make habits perfect from the start. You just need to make them easy enough to begin. If going to the gym feels overwhelming, just focus on putting on your shoes and stepping out the door. If writing feels like a mountain, just open your notebook and write one sentence. Once you start, momentum carries you forward. The hardest part of any habit is the beginning. Reduce friction, and the beginning becomes effortless. Takeaway for you: human nature will always follow the path of least effort. Don't fight it, design for it. Make good habits frictionless. Make bad habits difficult. Prime your environment so the easiest choice is the one that serves your future. Because in the end, success is not about willpower. It's about design. Chapter 13, How to Stop Procrastinating by Using the 2-Minute Rule. Picture this: it's late at night. Your desk is cluttered, your to-do list untouched. You know you should start writing that report. Or finally clean the room. Or hit the gym, but instead, you grab your phone. Scroll. Maybe watch a YouTube video. Then another. Hours slip away. Procrastination wins again. Sound familiar? James Clear says, the problem isn't that we're lazy. The problem is that we make habits too big in our minds. We think we need to climb Mount Everest when all we need to do is take one small step. That's where the 2-minute rule comes in. The 2-minute rule is simple: when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. That's it. Just 2 minutes. Want to start reading more? Don't say, I'll read for an hour every night. Instead, I'll read 1 page. Want to get fit? Don't say, I'll run 5 miles. Instead, I'll put on my running shoes. Want to write a book? Don't say, I'll write a chapter. Instead, I'll write 1 sentence. Because here's the truth: habits must be established before they can be improved. Gateway habits. Think of these 2-minute actions as gateway habits, small, easy steps that naturally lead you toward the bigger habit. Nobody actually stops after flossing just 1 tooth. Nobody puts on running shoes and then just sits on the couch. Nobody writes 1 sentence and doesn't end up writing a few more. The 2-minute version lowers the barrier. Once you've started, momentum takes over. Why it works, James Clear explains: our brains love to conserve energy. Starting a big habit feels overwhelming, so we avoid it. But a 2-minute habit feels so small, it's almost laughable not to do it. The trick is, standardize before you optimize. Build the ritual first, then scale it. First, put on your workout shoes every morning. Later, walk around the block. Eventually, run 5 miles. Each stage grows naturally from the last, but only because you began with something you couldn't fail at. Example in action: consider a man who wanted to get fit. Instead of going all in at the gym, he made a rule: he had to go to the gym every day, but he could only stay for 2 minutes. Sounds ridiculous, right? But here's what happened. At first, he'd walk in, do 1 exercise, and leave. But the ritual of showing up became ingrained. Soon, 2 minutes turned into 10. Then 30. Then full workouts. Within a year, he had transformed his body, not because of willpower, but because of consistency. The 2-minute rule got him in the door. Defeat procrastination. The real enemy isn't laziness. It's starting. The 2-minute rule is your weapon against procrastination. Instead of saying, I need to study for 3 hours, just say, I'll open my notebook. Instead of, I'll meditate for 30 minutes, just say, I'll sit and take one deep breath. Once you begin, inertia carries you forward. The hardest part is already over. Takeaway for you: to stop procrastinating, shrink your habits until they can be done in 2 minutes or less. Focus on mastering the art of showing up. Because once you're in motion, the rest takes care of itself. Big achievements are nothing more than small habits, repeated and expanded over time. Chapter 14, How to Make Good Habits Inevitable and Bad Habits Impossible. Let me tell you a story about a man named Victor Hugo, the famous French writer. In the 1830s, Hugo faced a serious problem. He had promised his publisher a new book, but instead of writing, he spent his days throwing lavish parties, entertaining guests, and procrastinating. Deadlines loomed. His publisher grew frustrated. So Hugo came up with a bizarre solution. He gathered up all his fancy clothes, every suit, every jacket, every elegant piece of clothing he owned, and locked them away in a large chest. He gave the key to his servant and ordered him not to return it until the book was finished. Now, without proper clothes to wear, Hugo couldn't go out and socialize. His only option? Stay home. And write. The result? In just 1 year, he produced The Hunchback of Notre Dame, one of the greatest novels ever written, The Power of Commitment Devices. What Hugo used was what James Clear calls a commitment device, a choice you make in the present that locks in your future behavior. It's like setting up a trap for your future self, but one that works in your favor. If you want to eat healthier, don't just try harder. Throw out the junk food today so your future self has no choice. If you want to save money, set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to savings. If you want to waste less time online, install website blockers that prevent you from scrolling during work hours. By removing the option to fail, you make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. Shape your environment. James reminds us. Self-control is easier when the decision is removed entirely. Think of a smoker trying to quit. If cigarettes are sitting on the table, every second becomes a battle of willpower. But if there are no cigarettes in the house, the decision is made before the craving even begins. This is why environment design is so powerful. You don't need to be stronger, you just need to be smarter. Want to work out? Pack your gym bag the night before. Want to practice guitar? Put it in the middle of the living room. Want to study more? Leave your notebook open on your desk. The easier the habit, the more inevitable it becomes. Automate success. Technology gives us a new superpower, automation. Want to invest? Set up auto deductions to your investment account. Want to eat healthier? Sign up for weekly meal deliveries instead of relying on impulse. Want to read more? Schedule audiobook time during your commute. The less your habits rely on willpower, the more likely they are to stick. Automation environment equals inevitability. Remove the option for bad habits. The opposite is also true. If you want to kill a bad habit, increase friction until it becomes nearly impossible. Want to spend less on online shopping? Delete your saved credit card information so every purchase takes effort. Want to watch less TV? Unplug it after every use and put the remote in another room. Want to scroll less on social media? Delete the apps from your phone. Each barrier creates just enough resistance to break the loop. Takeaway for you: don't fight your bad habits, eliminate them at the root. Don't struggle to force good habits, make them inevitable. Use commitment devices, automate your success, and redesign your environment so the right behaviors become the only option. Success isn't about willpower. It's about making the smart choice once and letting your environment do the rest. Chapter 15, The Cardinal Rule of Behavior Change. Make it satisfying. In the 1990s, a small town in Pakistan faced a deadly crisis. Thousands of children were dying each year from diarrheal disease. one of the world's leading causes of child mortality, doctors knew the solution wasn't complex. A simple mixture of sugar, salt, and water, called an oral rehydration solution, could save lives. The problem wasn't science. It was behavior. Mothers weren't consistently giving the solution to their children, so researchers launched an experiment. Instead of only teaching mothers the importance of the drink, they added one subtle twist: flavor. They mixed in a small amount of orange-flavored powder. Suddenly, the solution didn't just keep children alive, it tasted good. The mothers noticed their children actually enjoyed drinking it. They smiled. They asked for more. And because the kids found it satisfying, the habit stuck. Mothers gave it consistently, and death rates plummeted. Why satisfaction matters. James Clear calls this the cardinal rule of behavior change: what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. Our brains are wired to chase satisfaction. When something feels good right away, we want to do it again. When it feels bad, we avoid it. That's why smoking, junk food, and endless scrolling on your phone stick so easily. The rewards are instant. But habits that matter most, saving money, exercising, studying, often have delayed rewards. The pain is now, the payoff is later, so how do we flip the script? We have to make good habits feel satisfying in the moment. The paperclip strategy. One entrepreneur named Trent Dursmid used a brilliant trick. He wanted to build the habit of making sales calls. Every morning, he'd place 2 jars on his desk, one filled with 120 paper clips, the other empty. Each time he made a call, he moved one paper clip to the empty jar. Call after call, clip after clip, he could see his progress. By the end of the day, the jar was empty, proof of his effort. That small act of moving a paper clip was oddly satisfying. It gave him a sense of accomplishment in the moment, not just at the end of the month when the sales commission arrived. Within 18 months, Dursmid's income had skyrocketed. Not because he made one giant leap, but because he made hundreds of small calls, powered by the immediate satisfaction of paper clips piling up. The lesson is clear: if you want habits to last, they must feel satisfying now, not later. Even a small signal of progress, a checkmark on a calendar, a jar filling with tokens, a tracker lighting up, can keep you hooked long enough to see the bigger results. Immediate satisfaction creates momentum. Momentum sustains repetition. And repetition builds identity. Takeaway for you: don't wait for the long-term reward. Make your habits instantly satisfying. Create small wins you can feel right away, because what feels good gets repeated, and what gets repeated becomes who you are. Chapter 16: How to Stick with Good Habits Every Day. In the early days of his career, comedian Jerry Seinfeld was still unknown, hustling through small clubs, trying to sharpen his craft. One day, a young aspiring comic asked him for advice. "Jerry, how do I get better? How do I actually become funny?" Seinfeld didn't talk about talent. He didn't talk about luck. He gave the young man a system: the way to be a better comic is to create better jokes. And the way to create better jokes is to write every day. Then he revealed his secret weapon, the chain. Seinfeld bought a giant wall calendar, the kind that shows the whole year at once. Next to it, he hung a big red marker. Every day that he wrote jokes, even just a few minutes, he drew a big red X over that date. Day after day, the calendar filled with red X's. 1 week turned into 2. 2 into a month. Soon there was a visible chain of progress stretching across the wall, and that's when Seinfeld gave the rule: don't break the chain. It didn't matter how good the jokes were. It didn't matter how long he wrote. What mattered was showing up and keeping the chain alive. Why it works, James Clear explains: habits are built on consistency, not intensity. We often fall into the trap of all or nothing. We plan huge workouts, then burn out. We set massive goals, then quit when life gets busy. But the real masters know, it's not about perfection, it's about never missing twice. Skipping one day won't ruin you. But if you let one day become 2, and 2 become a week, the chain breaks. That's when momentum dies. Seinfeld's calendar trick worked because it gave him an immediate reward: seeing the red X, and a visual reminder of progress. The longer the chain grew, the more painful it felt to break it. The don't break the chain method for you. You don't need to be a comedian to use this strategy. Want to work out? Track it with check marks on your wall calendar. Want to read more? Mark every day you finish a page. Want to write? Track every day you jot down even one sentence. The key is to make your progress visible. Humans are motivated by seeing results, even tiny ones. And here's the golden rule: never miss twice. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit, the bad kind. Master the art of showing up. Seinfeld's chain teaches us a vital truth: success isn't about doing amazing work once in a while. It's about showing up, again and again, even on days you don't feel like it. A workout doesn't need to be perfect. Just don't miss it. Writing doesn't need to be brilliant. Just don't skip it. Meditation doesn't need to be deep. Just sit, even for a minute. The chain is built by small links. One link each day. Over time, it becomes unbreakable. Takeaway for you: build your own chain. Track your habits visually. Celebrate consistency, not perfection. And above all, remember the rule: don't break the chain. Because every link is proof that you are becoming the person you want to be. Chapter 17: How an Accountability Partner Can Change Everything. In the 1920s, two men made a pact that would change their lives. One of them was Benjamin Franklin, already known for his brilliance but still a young man trying to discipline himself. The other was a small group of like-minded friends he called his Junto Club. Every week, they gathered together in a quiet room, discussing ideas, sharing progress, and, most importantly, holding one another accountable. If Franklin failed to live up to his commitments, the group would call him out. If someone else skipped on their promises, Franklin challenged them. This little circle of accountability became Franklin's superpower. It pushed him to keep his word, sharpen his thinking, and follow through on habits that eventually made him one of history's greatest statesmen, inventors, and thinkers. The power of social pressure. James Clear explains, humans are social creatures. We care deeply about what others think of us. When we make a promise to ourselves, it's easy to break. Nobody's watching. But when we make a promise to someone else, suddenly the stakes rise. Missing a workout alone. Easy. Missing a workout when your friend is waiting for you at the gym. Embarrassing. That's the power of an accountability partner. The weight loss wager. Researchers tested this idea in a study on weight loss. One group was asked to try losing weight on their own. Another group was required to report progress to a friend each week. The results. The group with accountability partners lost more than twice as much weight. It wasn't because they suddenly discovered new diets or magical workouts. It was because they didn't want to look their friend in the eye and admit they failed. Social pressure works where willpower fails. The habit contract. James suggests a clever strategy: create a habit contract. Here's how it works: you write down your goal, you state the specific habits you'll follow, and then you sign it, along with one or two accountability partners. Now, breaking your habit isn't just breaking a promise to yourself, it's breaking a written contract witnessed by others. Some people even add stakes: if I miss a workout, I'll pay my accountability partner $50. Suddenly, the cost of failure becomes too high. Why it works? Accountability works because it taps into two powerful human forces: reputation. We hate looking weak, lazy, or unreliable in front of others. Loss aversion. We fear losing money, respect, or status more than we desire gains. When combined, these forces create a safety net that makes habits stick. Apply it to your life. Want to exercise? Find a gym buddy. Want to quit smoking? Tell your friends and promise to pay them if you relapse. Want to write a book? Share weekly drafts with a trusted partner. When the pain of letting someone down is greater than the pain of following through, you'll choose action every time. Takeaway for you: don't go it alone. Find someone who will hold you accountable. Sign a habit contract, make a public promise, or commit with a friend. Because when your reputation and pride are on the line, your habits become unbreakable. Chapter 18: The Truth About Talent. When genes matter and when they don't. In the 2008 Olympics, a Nigerian-born runner named Ezenok Baribo competed in the 100-meter dash. She was fast, lightning fast, but standing beside her in the stadium were runners built like pure muscle, their bodies sculpted for explosive bursts of speed. Now, imagine taking those same sprinters and asking them to swim against Michael Phelps. It would be laughable. Their long, powerful legs would thrash in the water, while Phelps, with his unusually long torso, massive wingspan, and flexible ankles, would glide like a human fish. The sprinters weren't slow. Phelps wasn't more hardworking. They were simply built for different arenas. This is James Clear's point: genetics do matter. Some bodies are better for sprinting. Some for swimming. Some minds are better suited to math, others to music, but here's the real insight: genes don't decide your success. They only decide your starting point. Play in the right arm. Success comes when you find the habits that match your natural strengths. Usain Bolt didn't try to become a marathon runner. His body was built for short bursts, so he leaned into sprinting. Michael Phelps didn't try soccer. His physique gave him a massive advantage in the pool, so he leaned into swimming. The lesson for us? Don't fight your nature. Find habits and goals that align with who you already are. Personality and fit. James explains that personality traits, like whether you're introverted or extroverted, detail-oriented or big picture, disciplined or spontaneous, also guide which habits stick best. If you're naturally social, maybe joining a fitness class is better than working out alone. If you're naturally competitive, turning habits into a game will fire you up. If you're naturally analytical, tracking progress will keep you hooked. Habits stick when they feel like a natural expression of your identity. Genes versus effort. Now here's the balance. Genetics set the stage, but effort determines the play. No matter how perfectly Phelps was built for swimming, he still had to train relentlessly. No matter how naturally Bolt could sprint, he still had to practice daily. Genes may determine the boundaries, but effort decides how far you go within them. Think of it like this: genes load the gun, but habits pull the trigger. Find your advantage. So how do you apply this? Ask yourself, what feels fun to me but hard to others? What comes naturally, almost without trying? Where do I get energy instead of losing it? Those clues point toward the habits that will stick, because they fit your nature. Takeaway for you: don't waste energy fighting your genetics. Instead, channel them. Build habits that fit your strengths, your body, your personality. Because success isn't about being good at everything, it's about finding the right arena where your habits and your nature align. Chapter 19, The Goldilocks Rule: How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. High on the slopes of Mount Everest, climbers push through thin air. The wind howls, snow blinds their eyes, every step feels like lifting lead. The summit, the top of the world, lies ahead, but so do frostbite, exhaustion, and death. Climbers train for years. Yet even the strongest often turn back. The challenge is so extreme that it breaks them. Now picture the opposite: a tourist strolling up a gentle hill in the park. No danger, no struggle, no thrill. They make it to the top easily, but there's no sense of triumph. Too hard, and we quit. Too easy, and we get bored. But when a challenge is just right, not too hard, not too easy, but perfectly balanced at the edge of our ability, we enter a magical state. Psychologists call it flow. James Clear calls it the Goldilocks rule, the rule in action. Think about a tennis match. If a beginner plays against a professional, the game is hopeless. Every serve flies past, every volley is lost. Too hard discouragement: if a beginner plays against a child, the match is boring. No challenge, no excitement. Too easy boredom: but if the beginner plays against someone at their level, maybe just slightly better, suddenly the game is thrilling. Every point is a contest. Every rally demands focus. The challenge is just right. This is where motivation lives, why we stay engaged. The human brain craves progress. We love being stretched, but only slightly. Too much and we panic. Too little and we tune out. This is why video games are so addictive. They're designed with levels that are always just hard enough to keep you trying. But not so hard that you give up. Habits work the same way. If your goals are impossibly ambitious, you'll feel overwhelmed. If they're too small, you'll lose interest. But if they're just beyond your current ability, you'll stay hooked. The athlete's secret: elite athletes know this instinctively. Runners don't try to shave off 10 minutes in a week. They aim to beat their personal record by a few seconds. Weightlifters don't double their weights overnight. They add 5 pounds. The progress is small, but challenging enough to spark motivation. Each win builds momentum. How to apply the Goldilocks rule: ask yourself, is my habit too easy, too hard, or just right? If you're trying to run, maybe don't start with a marathon. Start with a jog around the block. If journaling feels boring, raise the challenge. Commit to deeper reflection, or share insights with a friend. If studying feels overwhelming, shrink the task until it feels doable but still pushes you a little. Habits thrive in the Goldilocks zone, where you're challenged, but not crushed. Takeaway for you: to stay motivated, find the sweet spot. Not too easy, not too hard. Just like Goldilocks and her porridge, the just right challenge keeps you engaged, excited, and moving forward. That's the secret to sustaining habits for life. Chapter 20: The Downside of Creating Good Habits. In 1975, a young violinist named Itzhak Perlman stepped onto the stage at Lincoln Center in New York City. As he began to play, his fingers danced across the strings with effortless precision. The audience was spellbound. But behind the beauty of his performance was something few could see: the result of thousands of hours of repetition. Every scale, every note, every movement had been practiced so often that it had become automatic. His habits made him a master, but here's the paradox James Clear warns us about: the same habits that make us great can also trap us. Because when habits become automatic, we risk stagnation, the comfort zone. Think about a writer who always follows the same routine. At first, the habit fuels creativity. But over time, the writing becomes predictable, repetitive, or an athlete who trains the same way year after year. At first, performance improves. But eventually, progress stalls. The body adapts, and growth stops. Habits bring consistency, but they also bring complacency. Why this happens: habits free up mental energy. When brushing your teeth, tying your shoes, or driving to work, you don't need to think. That's good, it saves brain power, but the downside is this: once a behavior is automatic, your brain stops paying attention. You coast. You stop improving. Mastery demands more than repetition. It demands reflection and refinement. The solution: deliberate practice. James introduces the idea of deliberate practice, the kind of focused improvement that separates amateurs from professionals. The casual runner jogs the same route every day. An elite runner tracks times, adjusts technique, studies nutrition, and pushes limits. Both run daily. Only one grows. Habits are the foundation. But mastery requires periodically breaking the routine, analyzing weaknesses, experimenting, and seeking feedback. The continuous cycle. The best performers in any field, athletes, musicians, entrepreneurs, use habits to stay consistent. But they also build in systems for review. Athletes watch recordings of their games. Writers edit drafts and seek critique. Businesses analyze data, test new strategies, and adjust. This cycle, habit reflection, prevents stagnation and creates mastery. Balance automation with awareness. James Clear's final lesson here is balance. Habits should run most of your life automatically. But the truly successful step out of autopilot regularly to ask: am I still improving? Where am I coasting? What new challenge can push me forward? This reflection keeps habits alive, sharp, and powerful. Takeaway for you: habits are the foundation of success, but beware the trap of autopilot. Don't just repeat, refine. Build systems for review, push yourself into new challenges, and never stop learning. Because habits can make you, but only reflection can keep you growing. Conclusion: the secret to results that last. Picture a bamboo plant. For years after it's planted, nothing seems to happen. The farmer waters it, tends to the soil, protects it from pests, but above the ground, there's only emptiness. Then, one day, almost overnight, the bamboo shoots upward, 3 feet, 5 feet, 10 feet in a matter of weeks. The truth is, the growth was happening all along, hidden beneath the surface. The roots were spreading, strengthening, preparing for the explosion of visible success, James Clear tells us, your habits are like that bamboo. For weeks, months, maybe even years, you may not see results. You may feel stuck, frustrated, ready to give up. But beneath the surface, your habits are laying the foundation. And when the breakthrough comes, it looks like magic, but it's not. It's the compound effect of small, consistent actions, the real goal. This book wasn't about goals. It wasn't about chasing massive achievements. It was about systems, the daily rituals, the small behaviors, the atomic habits that shape your identity, because in the end, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. The real secret to lasting results is this: focus on becoming the type of person who doesn't stop. The continuous growth cycle. Greatness isn't built in one leap. It's built in layers. Habits create identity, identity reinforces habits, together, they compound into transformation. The process never ends. There's no finish line. Just continuous growth. The British cycling team didn't go from losers to champions overnight, they stacked 1% improvements until the world couldn't ignore them. James Clear didn't go from coma patient to best-selling author instantly, he rebuilt his life one small habit at a time, and you, too, can change your story the same way. The final message: the secret to results that last is not radical change. It's not motivation. It's not even discipline, it's the power of small habits, repeated consistently, until they become who you are, like drops of water carving stone. Like roots of bamboo preparing for sudden growth. Like red excess on a calendar building an unbreakable chain. Small habits don't just change what you do. They change who you become. Final takeaway for you: forget perfection. Forget overnight success. Focus on the daily choices. The atomic habits, the small wins. Because one day, you'll look back and realize, those tiny steps weren't small at all. They were everything. And that wraps up our journey through James Clear's Atomic Habits, a book about small changes that create extraordinary results. I hope these stories and lessons inspire you to start building your own atomic habits today. This is the Narrated Novel, your space for powerful stories, timeless lessons, and unforgettable books. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to subscribe, share, and join me again for the next